Singapore has everything, but Colombian cuisine wasn't something I expected to see, especially not in the Michelin guide. This is Latido, the only Colombian restaurant in Southeast Asia. Hi guys, I'm Anya, and on this channel I share my dining experiences from all over the world. From Michelin-starred restaurants to local places that really stand out for their food and overall experience. Today I'm sharing my experience at Latido in Singapore. When I was scrolling through the Michelin guide and came across a Colombian restaurant, it immediately caught my attention. There are a lot of international restaurants in Singapore, but it's not common to see Colombian cuisine. And it turns out this is the only Colombian restaurant in Southeast Asia, which made me even more curious to check it out. Latido is located in Tanjong Pagar, right next to Chinatown. The area is known for its rows of heritage shop houses, now transformed into modern restaurants and wine bars, and it's a really popular place to go out, especially in the evening. Inside, the space feels quite lively with a modern setup and no tablecloths. The main dining room has tables placed quite close to each other, so it can feel a bit crowded. There's also a chef's counter where you sit right in front of the chefs as they prepare the dishes. And that's probably where I would normally choose to sit, but since it was Valentine's Day, we decided to go for a table instead. However, because the tables were so close together, it didn't feel as private or romantic as we had expected. There is Latin American music playing in the background, more on the louder side, mainly reggaeton, but it's something I personally liked. And like I mentioned, we visited on Valentine's Day, so the experience was probably a little bit different from a regular evening, especially because of how crowded it was. They had a special tasting menu priced at 158 Singaporean dollars per person. There was also a cocktail pairing available for an additional $30 per person, but no wine pairing. We decided to just go with the tasting menu without the cocktail pairing and instead ordered a bottle of wine from their menu. I have to say I was a bit disappointed at first that only their special Valentine's menu was available and not their regular one, but I'll tell you how it turned out. To start, we were served their signature house bread, a brioche-style rye bread glazed with a blend of fermented mushrooms and maple syrup. And yes, it was so good. It was such a strong start, and it really set high expectations for the rest of the meal. Then came the tuna with grilled leeks and pickled jalapeno, which had a very fresh, slightly acidic profile with a bit of heat but not too spicy. It was served in something similar to leche de tigre, I guess, so it reminded me a bit of ceviche, just in a more refined version. Next was a surf clam with potato in Nduja and basil sauce. The texture was slightly chewy, which I'm not very used to, but the sauce really stood out here. It had a strong acidity and quite a bit of spice, and together with the potato, it worked really well and was very flavorful. Then we had the arepa with grilled squash, Parmesan sauce, and balsamic vinegar. This was definitely one of the highlights of the meal. The Parmesan sauce was very rich and quite heavy, almost like melted cheese, but really enjoyable. The texture was beautiful as well, slightly crispy on the outside with a soft, fluffy inside. It's the kind of dish that feels comforting and quite filling, but still refined, and it just worked incredibly well. Also, the wine we ordered paired so extremely well with the dish that if there had been a wine pairing, this should 100% have been the pairing. After that, we had the lamb saddle with cassava and gooseberry to share. The lamb was served on top with the cassava underneath, filled with Oaxaca cheese and creme fraiche. Again, this was so good. I really loved this dish. The grilled flavor of the meat was incredible and it worked perfectly with the creaminess of the cheese. Oh my god, so delicious. For the main we had grilled short ribs served with a salad to share. It came with a cauliflower puree, a sweet onion puree, and a wine reduction. The salads added a really nice contrast with crispy elements like asparagus, beans, peas, and mushrooms, and it was topped with an egg yolk. The flavors here were quite rich, but still very well balanced. The meat clearly had that grilled flavor, but at the same time, it was insanely tender, literally melting in your mouth. It's rare to get something that's actually grilled and still that tender. It was another outstanding dish and definitely one of my favorites of the meal. And the sauce, oh my god, so good. I wanted to finish every single drop on the plate. Then there was a bit of a wait for the desserts. For dessert, we had strawberry with macadamia cake and soursop mousse. The strawberry really stood out, and the chocolate added a slight bitterness that worked really well with the soursop. It felt really precise, like a really well thought out dish. So many details, and everything just worked together. A perfect ending to the meal. The overall experience felt quite welcoming. The atmosphere is more lively, with the music being louder than what you would normally expect. Service was a bit mixed. There was one person that really did a great job explaining the dishes and the concepts, which made a huge difference. Aside from that, it felt a bit inconsistent. At times when we asked for explanations, we either didn't get much detail, or they would go and ask someone else and come back, or bring back the guy who was really good at explaining everything. That did take a little bit away from the experience. It could also be because we visited on Valentine's Day, so it was likely busier than usual, and possibly with additional staff brought in for the evening, which might explain it. For us, having the dishes properly explained is quite important, and that's also why the chef's counter would probably have been a better choice for us. Another thing to mention is that there was no wine pairing, only a cocktail pairing, which didn't really suit us since we're not cocktail people. That said, the wine we ordered worked really well with the dishes, especially with the Parmesan sauce that came with the Arepa. Overall, this was a really great experience. Yes, there were some service issues, but the food was so extremely good, with so many incredible flavors, that it completely made up for everything else. And there wasn't a single dish I would call weak. I will definitely come back to try their regular menu, but even this tasting menu, I could easily come back and eat it over and over again. This restaurant is quite different from what you usually find in Singapore, and I would definitely recommend visiting. And with that, we reached the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a lot more restaurants and other contents coming soon. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.